Welcome, friend. Tonight we are traveling far back in time to a moment long forgotten by most of the world. A moment when nature, calm and silent for centuries, suddenly revealed its power. Close your eyes. Imagine the warm glow of a fire beside you, its soft crackle steady and soothing. Breathe slowly and let the noise of the day fall behind. We are drifting together into the year 563 A.D. to the shores of Lake Geneva. In this place, life was simple, quiet, and deeply tied to the rhythms of earth and water. But hidden beneath the calm surface of the lake and the green slopes of the Alps, forces were gathering, forces that would in an instant turn serenity into devastation. This is the story of the Tauredunum tsunami. First chapter, The World of 563. A.D. Close your eyes and picture Lake Geneva as it was 1,500 years ago. The waters stretched wide and deep, a great mirror laid out between the mountains. When the wind was still, the lake reflected the snow-capped peaks so perfectly that it seemed as though the sky itself had been caught upon the water's surface. The air was crisp, carrying with it the scent of pine forests clinging to the slopes, and the clean freshness of streams that trickled down from the Alps. Each morning a thin mist would rise from the lake, curling and drifting before the warmth of the sun gently lifted it away. Along the shoreline, life moved at a simple, steady rhythm. Small villages clung to the edges of the land, their wooden homes built with thatched roofs and rough timbers. Smoke drifted lazily from chimneys, spiraling into the sky before fading into the crisp mountain air. Chickens pecked and scratched at the dirt courtyards. Goats and sheep wandered in search of grass, their bells tinkling softly in the distance. And always there were fishermen. At dawn they pushed their small wooden boats into the lake, their hands rough from rope and oar, their nets coiled neatly at their feet. The sound of water lapping against the boats mixed with the distant calls of waterfowl as they set out across the shimmering surface. To the people of this land, the mountains were not simply stone and snow. They were guardians. They loomed above like ancient sentinels, unchanging, eternal. The villagers believed the mountains gave them everything: the rivers that watered their crops, the fertile soil in the valleys, the forests that offered wood and game, and above all, the sense of safety that comes from being watched over by something greater, something immovable. Life was not always easy, but it was steady. Seasons brought their challenges, but also their gifts. In summer, fields of wheat and barley swayed gently in the breeze. In autumn, grapes were gathered from vineyards along the hillsides, pressed into wine that warmed the long winter nights. And in winter, when snow covered the roofs and paths, families huddled close to their fires, telling stories of gods and heroes, of kings and kingdoms far away. It was a world of cycles, of predictability, of quiet trust in the land itself. And no one, not a single soul, who lived on the shores of Lake Geneva could have imagined that these very mountains, so solid and eternal, would one day betray them. Chapter 2. The Silent Warning. High above the lake stood the towering cliffs of Tauredunum, their jagged edges cutting into the sky like the teeth of an ancient beast. For countless centuries they had stood unmoved, weathered by the rhythm of wind, rain, and frost. To the people below, they seemed as eternal as the heavens. But mountains have their secrets, and sometimes their patience runs out. Deep within the stone, tiny fractures crept like veins across the rock face. Almost invisible to the eye, they widened with each season. Winter's ice worked its way into cracks, forcing them open. Spring rains loosened soil that had clung to the slopes for centuries. The mountain was shifting, preparing to move, though no one could yet see its intent. In the days leading up to the collapse, whispers spread through the villages. Some swore they heard low rumbles from the cliffs, deep sounds that seemed to vibrate through the ground like distant thunder. At night, when the world was otherwise still, a faint groan could sometimes be heard, echoing across the valley. Was it only the wind? Was it the restless earth? Some villagers brushed it off. Mountains creaked and groaned, they said. It was nothing new. Others muttered that the gods were stirring, that omens were written in the rocks. Still, fields needed plowing, nets needed casting, children's laughter still danced along the water's edge. Life pressed on as it always had, and above them the mountain kept waiting. Chapter 3. The Collapse. Then, on that fateful day, the waiting ended. Without further warning, the cliffs of Tauredunum gave way. Imagine the moment, a silence broken by a roar that shook the very bones of the valley. Louder than thunder, deeper than any storm. The mountain itself seemed to cry out as it tore apart. Stones the size of houses broke free, tumbling downward in a torrent of unstoppable force. Trees were ripped from their roots as the earth gave way. Entire sections of forest vanished beneath the cascade. The air filled with dust so thick it blotted out the sun, turning daylight into twilight. Birds scattered wildly, their cries lost in the deafening roar. Thousands upon thousands of tons of rock, soil, and shattered trees plunged downward, striking the edge of Lake Geneva with unimaginable power. The still, mirror-like surface of the water erupted into chaos, as if the lake itself had been struck by a hammer from the heavens. What had been calm became fury. Chapter 4. The Wave Rises. At the water's edge, the people had only moments to grasp what was happening. The landslide's impact sent shock waves across the lake, and from it a wave began to form. At first it was only a swell, a strange and sudden lifting of the water. But in seconds it rose higher, towering, growing into a wall of liquid force. Not gentle, not forgiving, but immense. Fishermen in their boats saw the surface beneath them heave as if alive. Nets slipped from their hands, forgotten. They paddled desperately, oars thrashing, but no human strength could outpace the rising surge. Their small boats were lifted, spun, and swallowed. Along the villages, mothers pulled children close, their voices drowned by the rumble of water. Farmers abandoned their tools, eyes fixed on the horizon where the wave bore down upon them. There was no time to run, no time to hide. The tsunami swept into the villages, tearing away homes as though they were made of straw, uprooting trees, carrying carts, livestock, and people alike. Boats were tossed high into the air before crashing back down. Fields vanished beneath churning water. Some who stood at the shoreline never even had the chance to cry out. The wave was merciless, a wall of destruction racing outward. Chapter 5. The Reach of the Tsunami. The wave did not end with the first villages. It traveled onward, racing across the full length of Lake Geneva. For over 70 kilometers, the water carried its deadly force, building and breaking as it struck one community after another. Finally, it reached the great city of Geneva. Behind its proud walls, the people had always felt safe. The walls had stood against raiders, against storms, against time itself. But water respects no wall. The surge rushed into the city with unstoppable momentum. It battered the defenses, flooding streets, knocking down wooden homes and drowning markets where only moments before merchants had called out their prices. Families were swept away as the water roared through alleys, filling cellars, collapsing roofs. When at last the waters receded, the silence was unbearable. It is said entire villages had vanished that day. Hundreds of lives, perhaps thousands, erased in the blink of an eye. Survivors stood stunned, staring at a world forever changed. And then, almost cruelly, the waters returned to calm. Lake Geneva lay still once more, its surface reflecting the sky as though nothing had happened. Yet beneath that calm, ruin and memory lingered. Chapter 6. The aftermath. As the sun sank behind the mountains that evening, the lake appeared peaceful again. The same water that had brought devastation now shimmered with the soft light of dusk. But for the people along its shores, nothing was the same. Where homes had stood, there was emptiness. Fields were scarred with mud and debris. Survivors searched desperately through the wreckage, calling out for loved ones, finding only fragments of lives that had been swept away. Fires were lit on the hillsides, not in celebration, but as signals to call for aid from villages further away. The air smelled of wet earth, broken wood, and grief. The mountains that had once been symbols of stability were now reminders of fragility. And yet, even in ruin, there was resilience. Survivors began to rebuild, one plank of wood at a time, one stone upon another. They told their children what had happened, passing down stories of the day when the mountains fell and the waters rose, so that the memory would never be lost. The lake, once a place of peace, had revealed its strength, and for those who lived, respect for its power remained etched into their hearts. Last chapter, Reflections in the Night. Tonight, as we reflect on this ancient story, we are reminded of the delicate balance we live within. Mountains rise, lakes sparkle, cities grow strong, yet in a single moment, all can change. The people of Tauredunum did not know their time was short. They lived as we do, tending their fields, raising their children, laughing, grieving, dreaming, never aware of the power building silently above them. Perhaps this is both our blessing and our burden as humans, to live fully without knowing when the ground beneath us may shift. And yet, out of tragedy comes wisdom. Though 1,500 years have passed, the story of the Tauredunum tsunami still whispers across time. It reminds us that the earth is alive and that we are not its masters, but its guests. The mountains keep their secrets. The lakes hold their silence. And we, like those who came before us, walk upon their edges with reverence. So now, let this story settle in your mind, like the last ripples of water fading into stillness. Picture the lake returning to calm, its surface smooth beneath the stars. The mountains loom once more in quiet silence, their jagged outlines softened by the moonlight. Take a slow breath in and let it out gently. Feel your body sinking deeper into rest. The fire beside you crackles softly, its glow warm and steady. The story is finished. The waters are calm, the mountains are still, and you are safe. Good night.